Hello and welcome to the Everything is Black and White podcast. Hope you guys are all doing well. We've got a fantastic show on the way. But first, I just want to say thanks to NordVPN, our sponsors here at the Everything is Black and White podcast, who without none of this would be possible. And we've teamed up with them to offer our listeners and viewers an exclusive offer. You can click the link in the podcast description box or go to nordvpn.com/tune to sign up and save your pennies on a plan. It is well worth your time to sign up. You are secure, you are safe, and you're supporting the podcast. Why sign up? I hear you ask. Well, there are a host of benefits. For me, it is the value for money because one subscription can be used across 10 devices. That's your work phone, your personal phone, your tablet, what have you. 10 devices, one subscription. I mean, that is the definition of value for money. The other thing I love about it as well is the way that it keeps your details safe and secure when browsing on public Wi-Fi. So if you're on the bus, the train, you're in a cafe and you're connected to their Wi-Fi, there is always the risk that your details could be compromised. That's your bank details, your passwords, and a load of other stuff as well. But with Nord, you are safe and you are secure. And that for me means a heck of a lot. And look, if you're going abroad as well and you're missing your home comforts and you want to keep with it with all your UK streaming services, then you can click the location back to the UK and make sure you never miss your favorite program. What is not to love about it? It's absolutely fantastic. Very simple to get on board. You download the app, you sign up, and away you go. You're keeping yourself safe, you're keeping yourself secure, and you're supporting the podcast at the same time. And another benefit, and I've already mentioned three, and there are a host of other things to mention as well if we had the time. But the final thing I'm going to mention is a 30-day money back guarantee. So it's literally no risk. If you don't like it, get your money back. But you will like it because it's a superb app to have on your phone. Keeps you safe, keeps you secure. And once again, you're supporting the podcast. So click the link or go to nordvpn.com/tune to take advantage of an exclusive offer for our listeners and viewers of the Everything is Black and White podcast. Roll the titles. Hello and welcome to the Everything is Black and White podcast. I'm Andrew Musgrove, joined by John Gibson for the second time this week. I must have done something right in a previous life. It's time for the match preview. Newcastle welcome Liverpool to St James's Park on Monday, a game under the lights, and it's going to be a game that is going to be feisty, to say the least. There's a lot going on in the background, aside from what will happen on the pitch, which will lead to it being quite a boisterous atmosphere. There will be other words I'm sure you'll be wanting to use, but this is a family-friendly show. John, welcome back to the podcast. I know it's only been 24 hours since we spoke, but you're well?
I am indeed. You can use any words you like about this, can't you? It'll be feisty, it'll be spicy, it'll be edgy, it'll be explosive, it'll be frosty in the boardroom and furnace like on the terraces. Turn it into a bear pit. Can you imagine that the first home game of the season would be Newcastle v Liverpool, not just a rerun of our great moment of last season in the Carabao Cup final at Wembley, but with all that's gone on and is continuing to go on at the moment, it is an unbelievable pairing for the opening day at St James's Park, isn't it?
It certainly is, and I cannot wait. I've got visions, and I can hear the atmosphere in my mind already of what it's going to be like. I hope it lives up to my expectations, and I'm sure it will. Bank holiday Monday as well, so I'm sure many of you will be on the good old 0% Guinnesses. Other brands are available, but look, a little tie in there with Newcastle's latest commercial deal, John. So the atmosphere will be unbelievable. I mean, John, let's start with the elephant in the room. Alexander Isak, we know about the statement, we know about the club's response. Eddie Howe on Friday morning confirmed in his press conference, as we expected, that he will not play on Monday. The first thing to say, though, I think, ironically, if I was Alexander Isak and I had watched that Bournemouth game in which Liverpool won at Anfield on the opening game of the season, I would be licking my lips at the prospect of facing Liverpool's defence because they looked slow, they looked laboured, and yet here he is sitting out.
Yeah, because he's licking his lips at the prospect of playing centre forward for Liverpool, sadly. So that's why he's out. Frankly, I've found the whole thing is becoming tiresome with Isak. I'll be absolutely delighted to get to football again on Monday night. And wouldn't it be lovely if, despite the Isak thing, despite everything that's gone on, despite the Gordon thing before Isak, despite Ekitike being hijacked, despite, if Newcastle just went and won a football match against Liverpool, Premier League champions, and the two things I think they've got to do to make that happen is they've got to turn the dressing room into a us and them situation, a band of brothers against the world. They did that very successfully down at Aston Villa, and I'm expecting it again. So there's got to be a huge togetherness on the pitch between the 11 players who start. And then there's got to be a huge togetherness on the terraces, and they turn it into a bear pit of the most positive sort, which is lifting Newcastle. You know, you think of bear pits normally as perhaps staging objections to boards of directors or something. This is different. This can be won on the field by the togetherness and on the terraces by the togetherness. If we get both of those right, because they don't like playing against our high press, they don't like the energy we carry into matches. We blew them away at Wembley as a result of that. We frightened them to death up here in a league game for an hour by doing that. If we play at 100 miles an hour, but controlled 100 miles an hour, they won't like that. And with the crowd behind us, etc., I know the obvious question is, where does the goals come from? But they'll come from somewhere if we can manage to do that for an hour. And there's possibilities there. And we've got to turn a huge disadvantage, i.e. not having a centre forward, into an advantage. And that can be done by the camaraderie of the team and by the passion of the crowd.
Well, this is where Newcastle United are at their best. As you mentioned there, the world against us, that siege mentality kind of vibe. And the one thing that Alexander Isak has managed to do, which very few people have done down the years, is unite the fan base. Everyone is pulling in the same direction when it comes to their view on Alexander Isak. And that's going to lend itself positively to Newcastle on Monday. I cannot wait for this game. It is going to be.
I can't think that I can't think he'll be sitting in the stand, Andrew. Can you? I can't imagine him coming and sitting up in the director's box next to Jamie Rubin and clapping enthusiastically when we get a corner. I somehow don't think we'll see that.
No, I don't think they would allow that either, as much as that he's been diplomatic and once again has said that he wants them back and reintegrated into Newcastle United's squad. I think one thing that everyone is looking forward to, John, is seeing Joe Linton on Monday night. There's been plenty of memes and videos sent around over the past few days on social media about the carnage that Joe Linton is going to unleash in his first tackle, most probably. It's important, though, isn't it, that Newcastle United control this passion, maybe anger, maybe disappointment, and use it in the right way. We want Joe Linton, for example, to be his physical best, to be that tank that runs over everybody. But we also want him to remain on the pitch at the same time.
Yeah, we do. And we've got to remember, Joe's Joe, of course, and Joe will play Joe's way. We've got to remember, and that was a smile that went round my lips on the opening day. He got booked. Now, isn't that par for the course? He's already on a booking this season towards his 9 or whatever it takes before he goes the journey. So, what I count up at the end of the match, I say, A, did Joe get booked? And B, did he get a whack on his knee? Because that's the two things that are certain, like night following day. And yes, we've got to keep him on the pitch. Yes, you've got to be coldly ruthless, not a hothead. You've got to be coldly. All the great ruthless tacklers down time, why is cold? They weren't red hot, because that's irresponsible, and that ends up you get sent off or you get a bad injury. You're cool. you're ice cool in the way you go about a professional job, and we need Joe to be that.
Yeah, certainly so. And the other thing everyone is looking forward to is the display from War Flags. Obviously, they always set the tone in the right manner prior to kick off. I mean, everyone remembers that wonderful display that they put on for Isak last season against the game against West Ham. And everyone is wondering what they're going to do this Monday. One suspects it'll be a message of unity. A lot of people are asking for that Dan Burn quote about nobody achieving anything without their teammate, which I think would hit the tone absolutely spot on. It's just going to be so fascinating on and off the pitch, isn't it, John? And again,
Well,
Eddie Howe's had his press. Go on, John.
you know what? When we were saying there, Andrew, about Big Joe, and we want to make certain that he's going to rumble in the jungle, but we've got to make certain it's cool and it's not hot-headed. I think one of the things that Isak might be pleased about on Monday is that he's not leading the Liverpool attack in direct opposition to Dan Burn, because I think Dan Burn might have attempted to cut him in half, and I think the crowd might have been behind that as well. So I think Isak will be happy enough to sit this one out.
Yeah. I think everyone is looking forward to that first Dan Burn challenge. I mean, shades of that flying challenge against PSG that he put in. That would be certainly welcomed on Monday. I'm certain we'll see one or two of those come out of his locker. Obviously, a game under the lights as well at home. I mean, this fixture anyway, John, has always been one to watch. Obviously, we've had the infamous 4-3 in the mid-90s, but of late, you mentioned last season when Newcastle were brilliant for now and they end up losing that game, but there's always seemed to be a bit of an undercurrent. Eddie Howe versus Jurgen Klopp a couple of seasons ago, we felt hard done by Anfield when they scored in the 100th minute of added on time of 8 minutes, if everyone remembers that. And I think obviously the Isak situation now just takes that up to another level. We've got Eddie Howe in his press conference talking about Monday and saying the first home game is always going to be electric. Under the lights, evening games are always really special for us. I have no doubt this will be a really passionate display from the home support. We need to use that, but not be reckless with it. We've got to concentrate and deliver our game plan, but using the energy from the crowd will be vital for us. My question to you, John, is how easy is it for Eddie Howe to block out all the noise and just concentrate on whatever the game plan is on Monday?
He's been magnificent in doing that. I think we've got a lot of time for Eddie. We know that he's an exceptional coach. We know that he's a cool leader. He never gets too elated in victory, never too down in defeat. He keeps level. I think he's been tested like never before over this Isak thing because he's been let down horribly. It is infiltrated into his life. He's a football man who has not been allowed to concentrate on football and concentrate on training and on tactics, because everywhere he goes, every press he has a press conference about Liverpool and everybody just wants to ask him about Isak. It is so horrendously difficult for the man and for the players, but he's the leader, and I think he hasn't put a foot wrong politically over this whole business. And Isak's only had one thing to say, and he's put his foot right in it. And Eddie's had to stand in front of the press and in front of the world time and time again, and has played a blinder from that first day at Glasgow Celtic when he had to start the Isak excuses rolling right until now. I think he's done brilliant. My heart goes out to him because he'll be aching to concentrate just on football. He must scream at the name of Isak being mentioned to him because he's that fed up with that situation. He'll be desperate to concentrate on the fact of Liverpool. How do we pull another tactical masterclass on them like we did at Wembley? How we take advantage of their situation at right back where they haven't got one, and how we can take advantage of that, and how Harvey Barnes can run the show there. How we can manage without an orthodox centre forward, and what that means for the support coming from midfield and the wide areas to try to get the breakthrough goals. What we've got to do to stop a very good forward line, front three at Liverpool, from scoring. He wants to concentrate on all that I want to concentrate on that. I want to go on Monday and concentrate on football and not look round and talk about somebody that isn't even there. Alexander Isak, who isn't even there. So what do I want to talk about it? He has disappointed me more than any Newcastle United player in my time. And I've had a long time because he has let me down. And you know why he's let me down? Because I was such a fan. Because I loved him so much. Because I thought he was so elegant, so beautiful to watch, and so ruthless in his finishing. He was everything I wanted in a Newcastle United player and a Newcastle United hero. And what's he turned and done? Kicked me in the shins. And I feel more disappointed over this guy than I've felt, because if I've been let down in the past without putting a finger, it's been by some players I think, well, you weren't that good anyway, or we won't miss you too much, son. Or I didn't feel so let down because I hadn't stuck my whole flag on the top of the flagpole. I did with Alexander Isak, and I feel dreadfully, dreadfully lucky. And I say for once again, and hopefully for the last time, it's not because he wants to leave Newcastle, it's because the way he's gone about leaving Newcastle. That's what's sickened me. People leave Newcastle. I've sat through Supermac leaving Newcastle, through Les Ferdinand leaving Newcastle, through in a period of about 12 months, what'll be Beardsley and Gascoigne leaving Newcastle, with bringing inevitable relegation at the end of it. I've sat those superstars leaving Newcastle, but they've never left Newcastle in the way this man's leaving Newcastle.
Yeah, everyone will definitely be sharing your sentiments there, John. Let's talk about tactics and what have you. You mentioned there Liverpool's forward line, and obviously the options off the bench are scary as well. Some might say the Newcastle United go to a back five potentially. I don't think they will do. I actually think it'll be unchanged. I suppose the question then is, how do Newcastle United approach it? Do they take control of the game, or do they sit back and allow Liverpool to have the majority of the ball and then hit them on the counter using the pace of Barnes and Elanga on the wings and of course the midfield? I mean, that's kind of what Bournemouth did. They sat in and then hit them on the break and had relative success even though they lost the game. How do you see Newcastle approaching this one?
That's a very, very good question, because Newcastle are at home, and in certain ways that dictates the way you play, Andrew. The way you play at home in front of your own fans. 52,000 fans, 50,000 of them Geordies. What way do we play? Now, when they're on the front foot, they're excellent. They are excellent going forward, looking to finish, etc., etc. They're very good. They're very, very vulnerable on transitions and turnovers. And I think Newcastle will be well aware of that and will look to play that. And yes, that means playing on the counter a lot of the ways. But on transitions and on turnovers, they're certainly vulnerable. And now the only way and that's how Bournemouth scored their 2 goals, by the way, was on turnovers in transitions. That's how they got their 2 goals. If they can score 2 goals down there, if we score 2 goals on Monday night, we win. It's whether we can score 2 goals. That's the problem. And it's a huge problem, by the way. So I'm not suggesting it's easy we're going to win. We could just as easily lose, and because we don't get things right. But turnovers are the secret. And the wonderful thing, not only are they vulnerable at that, Andrew, but we have the armory to take advantage of that, in as much as we're quick all over the pitch. The front three are absolute lightning. Elanga, I said how the ex-Forest guy could run the Aston Villa game because of his pace. Now his pace on turnovers here, and Gordon's no slouch, and Harvey Barnes is no slouch. We can, and the fullbacks will support very, very quickly and in full flight, Trippier and Livramento. That's where Liverpool are vulnerable. And that's where, if we're going to catch them, we will catch them. The only thing that bothers me is, and I think we'll get into a lot of situations where we counter-attack and look terrific and got great pace. The only thing that worries me is, please, when we get into the box, can we put our cool head on and finish? I can see us getting a lot of chances, Andrew, but we've got to take them. I mean, if you look at the first half at Aston Villa, we should have been out of sight. At half time, Newcastle should have been 2-0, 3-0 up. They were 0-0, and that turned to a friend of mine and said, we've got to be careful we don't pay for this. And at the beginning of the second half, we looked as if we were going to pay for it until they got the man sent off, and we weren't. But we almost paid for dominating the first 45 minutes, but not turning it into goals. When we counter-attack Liverpool after turnovers, we must make it pay. That's the difference. We must make it pay.
Yeah, because my fear is that you get into these chances, you get into have these opportunities, and then you lose the ball in their box, and all of a sudden there's that massive space for them to run into. And we saw that against Bournemouth at times when Liverpool countered, and they were so quick up the pitch, so quick, absolutely electric. So that is my little bit of a concern. You have to be clinical, and you're right, you have to take your chances, especially against the top side like Liverpool. As we said, unchanged. And I mean, ironically, John, if you look at the starting 11 against Liverpool in that Wembley final, it will only be there'll be two changes, because you expect obviously Alanga to keep his spot, and then obviously Alexander Isak isn't going to play, and Anthony Gordon is going to play up top. So not too much of a change from the side that won that wonderful cup many months ago to finally end the drought. Are you looking forward to it on Monday?
Oh, desperately. It really is giving me a lift. I mean, I've got all the emotions. I'm tingling. I'm looking forward to it. I'm excited. Yes, I'm apprehensive because I know what can happen to her. I know how good Liverpool are, and I don't want to start the first two matches of the season and have 1 point out of 6. So I do know the vulnerability, what can happen, but that's part of the fun, isn't it? When you go on the Big Dipper on the Town Moor, part of the fun is that you worry as well as you're elated. You're waiting for the downs as well as the ups. It's part of what football's about, and this game is set up to be a wonderful game. I just wish we had a centre forward. If we haven't, all right, we haven't got Isak. Well, go on, Isak, and pick up your toys and put them back in the pram on Monday night. But if we had Wissa, for just taking an example of somebody we've tried to get all season, would be very, very chuffed. I was going to say if we had Ekitike, which we should have done, I would have been very, very chuffed. But the match might have been a little bit different, because he might have been centre forward for us, and Isak might have been centre forward for them, because the Isak deal could have been done if we got him.
Are you slightly disappointed that Newcastle haven't managed to get a striker in the last week?
Yes, I am. I'm disappointed Newcastle haven't got a striker in the whole summer. I mean, we've ended up doing well in the transfer market, but we haven't done well in the one position where we really had to. And that was the case, Andrew, before Isak threw his toys out the pram. We needed an extra striker with Callum Wilson gone, rightly gone. He'd done his job for it, and it was time for him to go. But we needed a striker then. By Jove, we need one now, don't we? And I am so disappointed. And it'll spoil my season, mate. Because if we get to September 1 and the only striker we've got is Isak, and we can't find him because he's gone down a big black hole in the Town Moor somewhere, then we are in huge trouble. Because the game's all about centre forwards. How do you think this club is built on number 9 legends? Because they're the glamour boys, because they're the boys that win you the games, because they're the boys that get all the headlines. They're the boys that make fans go into football grounds because they want to see the centre forward, and they want him to be pacey, and they want him to shoot like Supermac did, and they want him to bustle and harass like Alan Shearer did. They want them to head the ball like Wayne Davies did. They are the glory boys, and you need them. And by Jove, if we didn't know it, and we did know it, we knew it at the final whistle at Aston Villa, didn't we?
Yep, 100%. I asked fans to get in touch, and I asked them whether they were looking forward to Monday night and confident of getting a result. Thank you to everyone who got in touch. We got Ewan saying atmosphere will be brilliant, but we'll be doing well if we got a draw. We got Maggie the Magpie saying looking forward to the atmosphere. However, we're playing one of the hardest games of the season with one arm tied behind our back. So no, not confident of getting the result. On the back of the Villa performance, says Scott, I'm hopeful we might get a point, but with no striker in the team again, I'm not sure where the goals will come from. Number 16 says, sadly, the result could become somewhat irrelevant. The game has become more about weeks and weeks of anger that could have been avoided. Our pre-season has been derailed, and this is now the flashpoint moment. And Howe says, looking forward to it, absolutely, but I'm not confident of getting a result. Which leads us nicely, John, to you. How is it going to go on Monday?
Do you want my heart or my head? It just depends, because they're probably two very different things. I mean, the bottom line is my nightmare is Liverpool 1-0, win 1-0, and Ekitike scores a goal when he should have been here. My absolutely best option is Newcastle win 1-0 and Anthony Gordon gets a goal. With all the business I had with him and the Scouser, and Liverpool might have bought him before Isak started. So that's my nightmare, and my ecstasy is that the only goal is scored by Ekitike or by Anthony Gordon. I think it's extremely tough. It's obviously extremely tough. We've got to look to do them on transitions and turnovers. I would try to play to Harvey Barnes as much as I could, because they haven't got a right back. Both their right backs, the new signing and Bradley, are injured. So the Gomez may well play. He is not match fit, but he might have to. So I would try to get the ball to Barnes as much as possible and let him torment this fullback and whoever it is, because it's going to be third choice fullback. And let us remember, out of the front three, Harvey Barnes is probably the best hope of a goal, rather than Gordon or Ilanga, because he can finish. So let him torment the fullback, cut inside and curl it in the top corner. I think we've got to play to his strengths. What'll happen? I would settle for a draw now. But I've always been a person of heart. My heart. I've always liked following my heart, even though it's put me into all sorts of trouble in the past. But Geordies are heart people rather than head people. And if there's a God in the sky and he wants to give me a little present, 1-0 Newcastle, Anthony Gordon scores. Because it's Gordon against Liverpool. It's Gordon playing centre forward. It's Isak. Never mind, son. We've got another centre forward that just scored the winner against Liverpool. My utopia is 1-0 Newcastle, Anthony Gordon. But I'd take a draw now if I was given it.
I'd certainly take a draw. But you know what, John? I think Newcastle United are going to win this game. I think Liverpool are going to underestimate the feeling. I think they come expecting a really tough atmosphere, but I think they will not actually have expected what will prevail on Monday night. I think this is when Newcastle are at their best as well. As we've said, that siege mentality sort of approach to things. And yes, we're missing a striker, but look, they were so vulnerable on the transition with the wingers. Semenyo running at the fullback, and we saw Van Dijk and Kante just get totally cross-wired. So I think they're vulnerable across the back line, which gives me hope. I mean, what an evening for Anthony Elanga to make his Premier League home debut for Newcastle as well. And look, he got a bit of criticism last weekend, so he'll be wanting to shut a few people up with a goal or two. I am confident. I don't know whether it's just excitement, John, because I'm buzzing for the game. I really am. But I am confident that Newcastle United will win on Monday. So I'm going to say 2-1, and I think it's just going to be a fantastic evening for Newcastle on Monday. I might speak to you next week and be crying into me cup of tea, but that's what I'm going for right now.
I'm delighted to hear you say that. I'll stick with 1-0 Anthony Gordon, and somebody's got to score the winner. I don't mind who scores it, as long as it's in black and white. And if we harness the things that are going for us, which is the players, it's us against the world, and we're going to show the world, and the fans on the terraces say, this is a game where we are going to drive these boys on and they're going to respond to it. Then Liverpool might find they're in a game. And Isak might find that he's not only wanting to join the beaten Cup finalists, but the side Newcastle's just beaten at home as well. And I'll put with a final question. I think this Eki Tiki is a wonderful player. I think I watch him and he's a dream to watch. He's a Rolls Royce of a player. He looks so elegant. What do they need Isak for? So they can play Eki Tiki outside left. I tell you what, if they want Isak, they can give us 100 million in Eki Tiki. I'll take that deal. Tomorrow, by the way, and I wouldn't wait for Wisa. I would take that tomorrow.
Well, that's wishful thinking, John. We'll start hopefully with getting you that 1-0 victory for Newcastle on Monday. Thank you for popping onto the podcast. Thank you to you guys watching and listening. You know what to do by now. Hit thumbs up, hit subscribe on the YouTube channel, jump into the comments. And John, by the way, I don't know if you've seen, but there have been a load of positive comments for you on the episode that we did on, what day are we on now? On Thursday, talking about Isak and talking about Wissa, complimenting you. So I don't know how many 20 quids you've popped in the post, but it looks like it was quite a few.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen that, and I'm thrilled to bits to hear it, and I'm thrilled to bits because I did spend a lot of money asking people to do that, so at least the money's worked. But the only trouble is I'll have to spend a lot of money again today for them to send something in saying he's okay, that old, after what I've said about the Liverpool match, so I've got to try to keep it going.
But your comments do get read, ladies and gents. I do respond to each and every single one of them. So thank you. Do keep commenting on the YouTube channel. You can email in as well at the AIBWpodcast@reachplc.com. If you listen on the audio only platform, leave us a rating and a review. And remember to click the link in the podcast description box to take advantage of a NordVPN exclusive offer to our listeners and viewers. You know all the stuff by now, but it's well worth your time to sign up. Thank you for doing so. Support the podcast. Keep yourself safe and secure. Myself and John will be back next week.